So football is back very soon, ladies and gentlemen. We actually have Premier League football returning tonight, and obviously the Championship is back at the weekend. So what I thought we'd do for today's video is go through some of my final predictions for how I see the rest of this season panning out. We're going to be looking at the fixtures that are remaining for the clubs, both going for promotion and battling relegation. I want to know from you guys, who are you fancying for the top 6 and to go up through the playoffs, and who do you think is going to be in the bottom 3? So just in case you need refreshing, that is how the Championship table is currently looking like, with 37 games played, 9 more to go this season, and a lot to play for in both ends of the table. What I thought we'd start the video out with though is, before football was broken up in March, I actually did a prediction video for how I thought the season would finish. So this was my prediction after 36 games had been played for how I thought the rest of the season would pan out, and as you can see to the side of me, that is what I went for the final standings in terms of points teams are going to be picking up and everything like that. And I think this table in itself is worth having a bit of a discussion about, because I think that some of my opinions since then have changed because of obviously everything that's gone on. You know, certain players' contracts who are expiring, so that's going to have an effect on things. People are going to have people returning from injuries as well, so a few of my opinions since then have changed. But this was my table, so I had West Brom winning the league on 86 points, Leeds in second on 85, and then the rest of the top 6 remaining as it is now, and then the bottom 3 made up of Luton, Barnsley and Hull City. And then in terms of the race for the top 6, my prediction ended up being ridiculously tight in the end. So I had North End making it on goal difference, Swansea pushing us all the way, Bristol City, Blackburn, Millwall and Cardiff then falling behind that. I mean, even looking at the relegation zone, the points there is ridiculously close. I've got Hull going down on 49 and Huddersfield as high as 18th on 51, which shows the margin for error when football comes back is going to be ridiculously close. But one thing I want to get your guys' opinion on before we actually look into the fixtures is, how much do you think home advantage is actually going to be impacted by fans not being in the stadium? Because one interesting article I read the other day was about the Bundesliga and how that's been affected so far. So when fans were in the stadium at home, teams would win an average of 43%, so they'd have a 43 win ratio at home, and since fans haven't been in the stadium, that's gone all the way down to 21%, showing home advantage really has been diminished. How much is that then going to affect the Championship? You know, we've definitely got cases of clubs in the league so far who are much stronger at home than they are away. We could see that being flipped on its head. I think another thing that's going to be impacted as well is the amount of subs and substitutes that are going to be allowed, you know, on the bench and to come on after. Surely you'd think that that's going to benefit the sides who have got bigger squads to pick from. So far this season, Millwall have used the fewest amount of players in the league, just 23 so far, so I'm interested to see how that affects their squad. You know, I'm in no doubt that injuries surely are going to be picked up over this period, because there's just going to be so much constant football happening. And in these matches now more than ever, managers' decisions of, you know, when to bring on substitutes and the impact that they're going to have as fresh legs coming on, that's going to be more important than ever. So impact from the bench is going to be massive. If you are a team who's got strength in depth, I think you're going to benefit now more than ever, really. So let's go through some Championship size fixtures who've still got something to play for. I thought we'd start out with Fulham, because I think that they're the most interesting case at the moment for chasing down the top 2. They need to make up a 6-point gap on West Brom and 7 on Leeds if they are to sneak into the top 2 places. If we're looking at the fixtures that they've got left, a fair play to them if they go ahead and close that gap, because they've not got an easy run in, especially in my opinion compared to West Brom and Leeds, and we'll look at them in a little bit. But if we actually look at some of the tricky fixtures they've still got left, Brentford, Leeds, Forest and West Brom, all top 6 sides still to play. They've also got Cardiff, who are probably still going to be chasing the top 6. For me, and I think it is, looking at that fixture running, it probably is going to be the playoffs for Fulham. And that's not like an outrageous statement to make. I think that that's what most people will be thinking at the moment. The way that you could look at that on the flip side though is Fulham sort of still have it in their own destiny, maybe because they've still got Leeds and West Brom to play. If they win both of those matches, you know, the gap will be closed massively there. And I don't think that West Brom and Leeds will have a flawless run for the rest of the season. I think that both of them will drop points. But can I see Fulham sustainably making up that ground and then going that step further while having that consistency? I'm just not too sure. I think it will probably be third for Fulham in the end. Speaking of West Brom and Leeds, we'll look at their fixtures as well. And I think that just looking at this now for West Brom compared to Fulham's fixture list, I just think there's so many more winnable matches. Now, I know that that's a bit of a sort of double-edged sword in the Championship, because no match is easy, and let's face it, you know, West Brom could go on and like lose the next 4 matches and there wouldn't be that many, you know, people who would turn a blind eye to it, because it's just a ridiculously unpredictable league. Out of their fixture running though, West Brom only have 2 of the top 6 still to play, and apart from that, compared to some of the other sides who we're going to look at in a bit, that's not a bad running at all, I don't think, for West Brom. I think for that reason it will be them who are going to be going up automatically. And the same can be said for Leeds as well, who arguably have the easiest running of all three sides going for automatic promotion this season. The only side in the top 6 that they've still got to play is Fulham at the moment, and they do have a couple of the playoff chasers still to play, and those are going to be interesting games. You know, they got Cardiff on Sunday on the first game back. That's going to be a really interesting one. Got Swansea to play as well, but I think they're going to be able to get away with drawing and maybe even losing a few of these games just by looking at some of the home games they got left. You know, they got Luton, Stoke, Barnsley and Charlton all still to play at home, all which should be back in Leeds for 3 points, and you'd think, really. I think when it comes to Leeds, people do pay a little bit like closer attention because they do have, you know, the tendency to like implode at the end of the season or something like that. But looking at that fixture running compared to Fulham, I would be surprised if the top 2 was going to change at this point. So guys, let me know down below what you fancying for the race for automatic. Then if we look at the sides who are looking to consolidate their place in the top 6, we've got Brentford first of all. They're 10 points off automatic and they've got a 5-point lead over 7th place Bristol City. So at the moment, I think that Brentford are just going to want to end the season consistently, get that playoff spot, and then, you know, who knows what happens from there. I've seen some clips from Brentford in pre-season and they're looking quite sharp, you know. Obviously they beat Arsenal. I've seen a few flashes of Ben Rama as well, whipping out some tricks, and they are looking good, I have to say. So that one on the opening day against Fulham is going to be a fascinating battle. But in terms of their fixture list, it's looking alright. They've still got 3 sides in the top 6 to play. That's Fulham, West Brom and Preston. But for a side like Brentford, and with how many chances they create, they've got a lot of other very winnable matches for me in there. Same thing goes for Forest as well, although I do see their fixture running as a little bit trickier. They're also on 60 points, the same as Brentford at the moment. Forest can be a little bit more unpredictable, I think, at times. And what's interesting about Forest is they've still got a few of the actual playoff chasers to play, as well as that derby against Derby. That's going to obviously be an interesting one. There's going to be a lot of emotion in that one, but they've still got Bristol City to play. They've still got Swansea to play as well. Both of them are going to be looking to chase them down. And then they've got the games against Fulham and North End as well. Listen, I think that Forest will be in the top 6 come the end of the season, but I think they could be run a little bit closer for their money than maybe a few people are thinking. And then as for that 6th spot itself, it seems to be the golden ticket for a lot of teams at the moment, chasing down Preston. And as a North End fan, I am looking over my shoulder a little bit at the moment and looking at our fixture list compared to some of the other sides below us. I don't think we've got it particularly easy. You know, Luton this weekend, that's going to be Jones's first game back there. They're obviously going to be up for it. And then if we look at some of the other sides we've still got to play, Forest, Brentford, Bristol City on the final day. I don't think we got any easy games in there, but weirdly enough, I think I feel a bit more confident playing the sides around us than I do playing those at the bottom half of the table. So the games against the likes of Luton, Huddersfield, Birmingham, they're the games where I can see us slipping up the most, really. Bristol City are the closest side to catching us at the moment, and I say we've got a fairly similar running. Obviously, that game on the final day is going to be a massive one. Preston against Bristol City, that could be an absolute cracker. But the interesting thing about Bristol City's fixture list is they've got a lot of sides to play who are chasing the top 6 at the moment. So the way I see the top 6 panning out at the moment is I think it's gonna change a lot week to week. I don't think that there's going to be one side in 6 like Preston are at the moment, and we're just going to cement that for the rest of the season. I think that teams will go up and down throughout. Teams will go in and out of form. And Bristol City, I think, are someone who's been benefited by this break. You know, with players returning into the squad, a phobia could be massive for them. And then for everyone we're going to look at who is chasing down the top 6, I think it's probably Millwall who have got the most favourable run at the moment. And it is interesting because before the break they were probably the most informed side below the top 6 as well. You know, there was a lot of inconsistency in there, but Millwall were one of the side who had come on, you know, quite a bit since the start of the season. I know something that I have done throughout the season so far has been underestimating the teams at the bottom of the Championship. We saw that with the video I did at the start of the week, but compared to the games that Preston and Bristol City have got left, I don't think Millwall have got it particularly bad at all with that. Cardiff, I think, have it a little bit more tricky. They've still got quite a few potential banana skins to go up against, although they are one of those sides who is capable of throwing a spanner in the works. The way they play, they're a bit awkward to go up against sometimes. You know, the game they had at Ellen Road was just ridiculous. I remember when Preston went to Cardiff this season, they were a really tough side to break down, and then if they do have someone like Tomlin back who can sprinkle a bit of magic on them going forward, you can't rule them out either. Blackburn have still got a bit of a mixed bag for the rest of the season. Probably the only side that they've still got to play who are going to have like nothing to play for, probably going to be Reading and maybe Luton on the last day of the season if they've already been relegated by that point. It depends how Luton do, but Blackburn are currently 3 points off the top 6, and to be fair to Blackburn, one thing that they are capable of doing is putting a consistent run together, and if they're able to snatch a couple of points off, you know, the likes of Bristol City, Leeds and West Brom, that'll set them up in a really good position. 3 points in the grand scheme of things is not a lot to close down at the moment. Like we saw at the start of the video, I fancied Swansea to finish the season quite strongly, and it's interesting looking at their fixture run as well. They do have still quite a few sides to play who, when they play them, probably won't have much to play for. The likes of Birmingham, Reading, Sheffield Wednesday, and they've got a couple of other winnable matches in there. You know, the ones against Middlesbrough and Luton, you probably back them as the favourites for. Swansea have also got a 3-point gap to make up, so similar to Blackburn, if they can take some points off some of the other sides in the top 6 at the moment, it's another fair shout. After that, we then sort of get to the teams who have got quite an outside chance of then getting in. Derby are 5 points off the playoffs at the moment. I think they'd have to make up quite a bit of ground on the teams above them, and they would be someone who would be relying on other teams dropping points. But before the break, Derby were in a decent run of form. You know, they just come off the back of a 3-0 home victory over Blackburn. They don't have the easiest running though, but since the turn of the year, Derby have definitely stepped things up. And then the last side in there is QPR, who are 6 points off the top 6 at the moment, which I think would be too much to make up. But they were a really informed side before this break in the season. They just beat North End 3-1 at Deepdale, and their fixture running doesn't look bad at all. There's a lot of winnable games in there for QPR. I think it would just be too much to make up at this point in time, but I mean, what a story that would be if they did make it. So in terms of the race for the top 6 at the moment, I am still backing North End to go ahead and just about do it. We've been in the top 6 a lot throughout the season. I think that compared to some other sides, we don't have it easy with our running, but I think that our record against the top 6 will just about manage to see us through this one. Other sides I'm worried about, I think that Blackburn have got a decent run, Millwall as well. I think it's going to go very close this season. You know, Swansea and Bristol City are capable of pushing. I'm just backing North End for that 6th spot, but it's going to go close. Then if we hop over to the relegation picture, Barnsley need to make up a 7-point gap. So looking at their fixtures, games against the likes of QPR, Stoke, Wigan, Luton, they're all going to have to be massive for them, and they're going to have to pull off a couple of upsets in there as well if they are going to beat the drop. For Barnsley, I'm just not sure I can see it. Luton intrigue me a little bit. They need to make up 6 points, so it's still a big gap to make up, but with Jones returning and what like they might have been working on over this time, but Luton could come back as a completely new side. You know, I saw they beat Brentford in pre-season. They put 4 goals past them. I know it was Brentford's second team playing, but still, it shows they've got that goal-scoring touch back. I think that home matches for Luton are going to be crucial, you know, against North End, Barnsley, Reading. Luton aren't completely out of it, but I think the 2 teams that most sides are looking at the moment are both Hull and Charlton. They've both been in a really bad run of form since the start of 2020, and they play each other on the opening weekend. So, I mean, has there ever been a bigger, like, relegation 6-pointer? It's going to be absolutely huge, that game taking place at Hull. If we hop over to Hull's, they've both got their share of teams to play who are still in and around mid-table and are looking to scrap for survival as well. Hull just released their retain list for the season as well, and they are losing some quite big players to them. You know, Eric Lehigh's leaving, Jackson Irvine as well, so both Hull and Charlton are going to be hit quite hard by players leaving. Wigan aren't completely out of it though. They're on the same amount of points as Hull at the moment, although looking at their fixture running, I think they've got a lot easier than both Charlton and Hull have, to be honest with you. I think there's got a lot of winnable matches in there. An advantage that Wigan have though is that they seem to find their form before this break, so if they can rekindle that, I think they'll be alright. Middlesbrough, who are also on 41 points at the moment, have got an interesting run. I worry for them a little bit more than I do for Wigan at the moment, which I think is interesting. I'd like to know from you guys, if there was to be another side dragged into this that wasn't Hull or Charlton, who do you see as the sides above them most likely for relegation at the moment? Added on from that, we then got Huddersfield, who are still not out of it themselves. They've got a pretty tricky running, I'd say, and Stoke as well. For Stoke, it's going to be pivotal that they pick up points early on into this, because looking at their last 5 actually are quite tough. As 4 of their last 5 matches, they've got to play Leeds, Bristol City, Forest and Brentford. That's not easy at all. At the moment, I'm probably still just edging towards Hull for that final spot, but my opinion on that could change given the players they've got returning. You know, I'm waiting to see what their form is like when they jump back into it against Charlton. But that, guys, will wrap it up for today's video. I'd love to know from you, who do you see going down and as the top 6 this season? Where do you think your club's going to finish, and how many points do you see yourselves picking up in the last 9 matches? But other than that will now wrap it up for today's video, guys. So if you go to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. My championship score predictions will be back on Friday. I can't wait to get back into there. But other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.